morning or afternoon, whatever we are. How's everybody doing today? As I was introduced, I'm Jessica Zadinak. I'm Chief Research Officer of Applied Research and Analysis Company, ARAC. We are based in the United States. We are a behavioral science research firm, but we conduct behavioral and social science research across the entire world. Today, I want to talk a little bit about our organization, our company, how we tend to define success in the tobacco and nicotine space. I want to talk about understanding the consumer. Then we want to understand why the right science is critical for success, whether you're a manufacturer, an innovator, or whatever role you play within this industry. And then the importance of having positive regulatory relationships. So just a little bit about our company. As I mentioned, we are a contract research organization. So we have a team of PhD-level behavioral scientists. So I'm an experimental psychologist and statistician, and I have a team of 3 other scientists who work on the research that drives innovation, product development, and regulatory applications, and particularly then within the United States, which we'll talk about. So we conduct all types of research. We can conduct research from, basic surveys all the way through to extensive focus groups and one-on-one interviews with consumers across the world. And then we also conduct what is considered randomized controlled trials, which if you are trying to put a product on the market in the United States, you're likely to have heard that terminology recently, because that is what we know is driving success, particularly within the e-vapor space with the FDA. So this kind of just gives an overview of what we do. So we are a company that focuses on getting products authorized within the United States, going through the FDA regulatory pathway. Me, myself, have conducted 2 behavioral science studies that have led to authorizations within the United States of those products. We have other scientists on our team that also have conducted research that has led to authorizations. And there's a lot of kind of talk and chatter about, oh my gosh, it's so difficult to get a product put on the market in the United States. And while that's true, because the regulator wants evidence-based research, right? They want rigorous, reliable studies. And unfortunately, not a lot of companies are meeting that mark when it comes to submitting their applications to get authorization. That's where our company comes into play and helps companies get their products to market in the United States. There's also regulatory studies, though, that need to be done no matter what country you're launching your product, and we can also assist in those regards. Like I mentioned, we have statisticians, we've got quantitative and qualitative researchers, so much experience there. And we don't just stop within the nicotine and tobacco space. We also conduct research in the medical device community. We have some individuals on our team who have pharmaceutical experience. And so it really expands across various industries depending on what product you're coming to bring to market and what research might be needed and in what capacity. So, what is important about behavioral science? We have been trained as scientists to focus on 3 things. We typically call it the ABCs, so affect. And so that's how an individual is feeling. So that's the A. The B is the behavior, right? And so that's pretty easy because that's what we actually see externally. So that's kind of easy. And then C is going to be our cognitions, which are our thoughts. So when we are working with a company to develop products, to change products, to innovate, and then to get these products authorized through the regulatory pathway, we are always focused on the ABCs. What is that consumer thinking? What are they feeling? What are they experiencing? Because you might see their behavior, right? Are they smoking? Are they vaping? Are they pouching? What are they doing? But there's so much that underlies that and the reason and the motivating factors for why they do what they do, and that's where our expertise comes into play to help companies get the most successful product on the market. So what we really consider is that there's this 3 pillars of success concept. So we believe that the foundation for success within the nicotine and tobacco industry is going to be the consumer. And I know we've heard a little bit about that today already. It's very important, and I'm going to expand upon that for a little bit. The second pillar for success is going to be science. You have to have the right research team conducting the right science at the right time to be most successful. And then finally, having those regulatory relationships that are strong and having the regulator be able to talk to independent third-party firms on behalf of you as a manufacturer is also very important. So let's talk about the consumer. I think we're all here today because we have one goal in mind. We want to develop, manufacture, sell, be really successful at nicotine and tobacco products. At the foundation of that, though, is going to be the consumer. And I would like to think that all of us here cares about the consumer and is focusing on the consumer with their product development. And if you're not, come talk to us because you should be. But right now we might be here because we have an idea. We're at the concept phase. We're right in the beginning of product development, or maybe we're here because you have a full-blown brand and you're manufacturing a product across the globe. It's still worthwhile to keep in mind that every single step of the way, you need to be talking with consumers and you need to be considering those ABCs. So I would like to do a participation here. Raise your hand if you have actually sat down with a tobacco nicotine consumer face-to-face. Okay, so just a few of you, which is very interesting. I know Sarah was talking about this earlier. If you haven't done that, I would go as far as to say you're missing the mark because it is them who are purchasing your product, and if you are not sitting down and talking face-to-face with them, you're not understanding their affect, their feelings, their behavior, their thoughts, their cognitions, all those things that we know go into whether or not they're going to enjoy a product. And we did hear about this a little bit earlier. Depending on where you are located, where your products are being sold, these factors are going to change, right? But it's really important to keep in mind that there's two kind of concepts that any consumer is facing, particularly when they're transitioning off of combustible cigarettes to an alternative reduced risk product. First, they're going to have internal factors. These are factors that you might not see and you might not know if you're not meeting with them. So this can be just their desire, their willingness, their motivation to quit smoking. And every single person, every consumer is going to be different along that continuum. We meet with thousands of consumers every year, and we go from people who are like, I have tried 10 times the past 6 months, I want to quit so badly, and then they're going to talk about the reasons why they can't, right? But then there's other people where it's like, nope, don't take my cigarette away, I love it, I want to keep smoking, and then you're going to have to adjust your product portfolios and your marketing and the way you go to market when it comes to the different levels that person's on as far as their willingness to quit. There are a lot of smokers who truly believe they do not have the ability to quit. And they will cry to you. They will tell you stories and you will cry because maybe they want to quit so bad, but God's honest truth, they don't think they have the self-efficacy is what we call it in the psychology space. They don't believe they can do it. And think about yourself, even if it's not quitting smoking. If you don't think you can do something, what's the likelihood you're actually going to try and do it? Right? Like, we like to do things we know we're going to be successful at. So that's a huge factor. Personality factors, we like to call OCEAN is what it's called. So it's openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, introversion, agreeableness. There's different personality factors that we like to measure on our team to make sure we're really understanding the person when it comes to trying to change their behavior. And that leads into the psychological aspects as well. External factors, these are things you do see, right? So this is going to be the cost factor, and I know we talked about that. Imagine going to the market or going to the store, and you're like, gosh, I'd love to quit smoking, but this is $10. My cigarettes are whatever, $8, and I know that the cigarettes are going to work for me and I'm going to get my nicotine fix, but I have no idea if that vape product or that heat not burn product or that pouch is going to work for me, and I'm not going to put out money before I've tried it. Obviously, then external factors that lead to use are going to be your regulatory environment. Whether or not you as a company have resources to study all of this, right, to develop the best product. Also, consumers have, access issues, and we know that that's huge, especially because the lower income, I'm sure, think across the world, this is pretty generalizable, but especially in the United States, we have Native American communities, we have very, individuals in impoverished areas, and they don't have access to the alternative products to help them quit smoking. And so that's a huge problem. Their family can really be involved, and I could probably honestly talk for an hour on just this screen, the product. And we talked about that earlier. And they were mentioning ease of access and how disposables have blown up and are do really, really well in the market. And yes, ease of access is has a relationship to how successful the product's going to be, but the ease of access and the technology is going to be different for each consumer. And so someone who might be really technology savvy, it doesn't matter how kind of easy it is to use, right? And so if we really think about, there's going to be segments of smokers and how they define ease of access, or ease of use is what I meant to be saying. How they define ease of use is going to be different, right? Because they all come into it from a different, again, psychological and personality attributes. And so it's always not just one variable that we're considering, but it's the segments that underlie that variable. So then talking about science, one of my favorite topics. And this is something, again, could be talked hours about. I'm not going to bore you because most people here probably don't really care about the science, but it is the most important thing to getting your product on the market. We know that within the United States, in the FDA regulatory pathway, these are the most important, some of the top most important factors for getting your product authorized, because these are at the foundation of our behavioral science studies. And again, not going to bore you, but it's really identifying what is a reliable and robust study. Well, we know we've got to calculate sample size and power and effect size, and we got to randomize our participants, and we've got to do all these things. But that's why a lot of companies pay us, because you guys don't want to have to worry about it, right? But this is just an important slide to see that there's a lot that goes into it when we talk about doing the right science to drive your product development and authorization. And then this just gives you a quote from Brian King here. And we have a great relationship with Dr. King and the CTP, Office of Science. And I agree with this statement. Unfortunately, in the United States, in my opinion, companies have not provided the appropriate behavioral science research to get products, specifically flavored e-vapor products, on the market. And so it seems to be this doom to the international market. We recognize that depending on where you are, you're going to have different regulatory needs that need to be met in order to get your product authorized on the market. And so, we're hearing some things here about pouches being banned in different countries. We're excited to work with companies who want to push back and say, I'm talking specifically about pouches, no. Having nicotine pouches being banned in countries is absolutely insane. When you say, in comparison to a combustible cigarette that we know is the most harmful product, and that leads to the cancer, and that leads to, horrific outcomes. And so we would love to work with companies to say, let's give them the science for these individuals making those decisions, the legislators in these countries who are making ultimately a very, very harmful decision when it comes to protecting the public health of their people. let's give them the research to change that around, and we're going to refute that. Again, especially when it comes to being able to transition smokers off of the combustible cigarettes. Now, obviously, we focus on, the majority of our business was then the US PMTA market. I've been in the nicotine tobacco industry for 10 years. Before starting this organization, I was at Altria, worked on their harm reduction platforms, and then before that, I was in the public health sector. So really have spent most of my career focused on the FDA, focused on the federal government, and being able to provide the research to support the authorization of products. If you are unfamiliar with this process, a lot of people are like, nope, not going to do it. It's too long. It's too time intensive, too much money. And I would say it is all those things, but not too much, right? So it is a process that I believe should be done to make sure your products are going to protect the people, right, of the U.S. But this is just an overview of what it looks like to get a product on the market. So you start with pre-meetings with the FDA. And we enjoy having those conversations with them, and we've really grown to be a trusted partner with the FDA. Then you get your application accepted, officially filed, then it's under the scientific review, and then they're going to take an action, and then you're also then going to have your post-market reporting and surveillance, and that's also where we come into play. So it could take up to a year and a half, 2 years. There's also other ways to do this where it doesn't take as long. And we work with organizations that kind of help you get an application into the FDA sooner and then conduct your scientific research. And so there are kind of several ways to be able to go through this process. Our recommendation is always, and I would say this is no matter what country area you are, engage with your regulator as soon as you can and often, and let them know that you're serious and that you're kind of on their side, so to speak. And then you want to just make sure you have your trusted partners who are that independent third party. It doesn't matter whether you're doing the science for the toxicology or the analytical testing or your behavioral science. You want to make sure that there's someone that you can trust and that they are that third party so that the FDA and your regulator can also trust your data. So ARAC plays the biggest role in Module 6 here. So this is, again, not sure how familiar you guys are with the FDA and the US PMTA process. I know we've spoken to a lot of people here who want to get into the US market. And so hopefully this will give you a little bit of a guide as to how to do that. But this is the triangle where the entire application is comprised of this right here. We fall into the bucket 6, which is the clinical population health, but you're gonna have to do the research, in 3, 4, 5, and then 7 as well. But again, just wanted to call out, we are focused in Module 6, and this has been called out by the FDA CTP as one of the most important areas of an application, is being able to demonstrate the reliable and robust science to support this module. In summary, I guess I talked way too fast, but I would say, the first part is the consumer. Learn empathy. Sit down with them face to face. Talk with them. Get in their shoes. Again, I could have spoken, for an hour just about the consumer. It's just very important too. And a lot of times we look around and we're like, gosh, a lot of these products are kind of the same, right? But if you talk with a consumer, they might tell you a point that you've not considered. And you walk around here and you're like, oh my gosh, that's going to be a differentiating factor for my company. Because now I know that a consumer wants X, Y, and Z, and it's not being offered. And I will tell you, they mentioned it earlier on the panel about the consumption of e-vapor, e-cigarette products. That is so important, and we hear it all the time. The first question when we go to consumers and we give them for free e-vapor and e-cigarette products or pouches or heat not burn or whatever the product is, we give it to them for free and we say, we'd like you to stop smoking and use this instead. The first question they ask us every time, no matter where we are, is, well, how does this match to my cigarette? Like, I know I smoke like 38 cigarettes a day, so should I be taking 30 puffs of this? It's like, oh my, right? That's how naive they are, and that's how much help and hand-holding they need to switch. And so if there's a way, oh my gosh, if there is a way to come up with a product or a module or something that can equate a cigarette to an e-vapor product, a pouch product, or whatever kind of alternative product it is, that would be huge for consumers, and that would be the differentiating point between your company and all the other companies out here. But if you're not talking with consumers, if you're not hiring a research partner to help you through that process, you're not going to find that differentiating factor. And then the other thing, when we talk with consumers, it's really important to have this frame of mind of you're getting a sense of what they want and need today. But are you thinking about tomorrow and a year from now? And what if X, Y, and Z changes in their country, across the world, in their current daily life? If things change, how is that going to then change their wants, their needs, and then ultimately their behavior? So it's not just about today. We need to be thinking about tomorrow as well. And then anybody can say, yeah, just more research. Yeah, just do more research, do more research. That's not the answer. It's never the answer. You have to do the right research that is designed the right way for your stakeholder, for your end user, for your consumer, for your CEO, for your investors, whatever it is. You have to be able to know what questions as much resources as you can to conduct a really big study. Or we're going to say, you can probably get by with, some focus groups or a little bit of qualitative and quantitative research. So we're constantly providing kind of the best path and avenue for your research along the way. We also then conduct, like I mentioned, all of the research related to the Module 6, regulatory submissions. That's within the US, but also regulatory research across the globe. We provide the post-market support all the way through, obviously, to project completion. And with that, I think I have almost 3 minutes for questions because I talked really fast. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
So it sounds like you cover consumer research, but you also support companies to go through the regulatory process. So do you have in your team people that are focusing on both, or do the same people look after both areas?
That's a great question. It's a little bit of both. The scientists primarily work on both sides, but we do have one individual that focuses just on the more consumer and marketing side, and that is her background. And the rest of us really kind of blend into both when she needs support. And then obviously the focus is then on the regulatory scientific studies.